Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. We're conducting this meeting in a hybrid model, both virtually and in person. The Cemetery Committee is conducting this meeting on March 5th, 2025 at 4 p.m. on the Zoom platform and in person, in accordance with the town's policy directive guidelines issued April 1st, 2020 and amended May 7th, 2022. If you are recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded. I, Jeffrey Walton, hereby call this meeting to order. All committee members votes will be taken via roll call. We will start with the attendance roll call of committee meeting members. When I announce your names, please reply. Brian Davidson?
Here.
Jerry Susi?
Here.
Priscilla Sturgis?
Here.
Bridget Rodriguez?
Here.
And Jeffrey Walton with an asterisk. I've asked Jerry to take over the meeting as the vice chair. I have a pressing personal issue I need to address, and I want to make sure you guys had a quorum. So thank you very much, Jerry, and we will speak with you all next month.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. All right, so.
All right. So then, deed signing is, so you're gonna have Jeff sign the deeds. Can Jerry sign them as a
Vice Chair?
vice chair?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Well,
Do it at the end.
we'll do it, yeah.
Yeah.
And how
What
many?
about that? Yes. Three.
Perfect.
Next proposed cemetery committee meeting, April 2nd. Is that okay with folks?
That works for me.
We'll go ahead with that date. Discussion, possible action, CPW staff report, operations maintenance update.
Okay. We had 6 full burials, 6 cremation interments, and 11 single graves were sold. And we are currently evaluating the landscaping bids that were open on February 21st for the contractor for this year. And just been kind of playing with snow and ice.
Yeah, it was actually really icy last.
That sounds like a busy
In the middle.
month.
Yeah,
Yes,
busy
yes,
month.
yes.
We had a busy month. Yeah. Couple of the sales were at need sales for
Yeah.
multiple graves for an at need service. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was busy.
All right.
And then the only other thing we have is that, so tomorrow night, I'll be attending the trustees of town donations meeting.
Mhm.
And we're gonna be requesting a distribution from them that will help support the operating budget moving forward for next year. So it would be for the landscaping contract and other things. So
Great.
so that will be, I'll be attending on behalf of CPW for that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Lot transfer, the Diskin family, Fish.
Okay, me too. This is a 2-grade lot, A14 Maple Avenue, purchased by Thomas Diskin Jr. for his brother and sister-in-law who were not living in Concord at the time, so were not eligible to purchase. But now, as a former resident, would have been eligible to purchase, so it does meet the criteria of being a lot owner at Sleepy Hollow. Thomas died, his 4 children got together and they want to just kind of clean this up. So they've written us a note, all notarized, the 4 of them, stating that they wish for this lot to be transferred now to James P. Diskin, a former resident of Concord, from 208 Thoreau Street. He would become the owner of this lot.
Okay. Any questions or comments, thoughts?
I would make a motion to accept the Diskin family application as drafted.
All right, we've got a motion to accept it in a second.
I second.
All right. 50 seconds. We'll take a roll for a vote. Brian Davidson.
Aye.
Jerry Susi. Aye. Priscilla Sturgis.
Aye.
Bridget Rodriguez.
Aye.
Okay, so it passes. Thank you. All right, next item is a columbarium update. We do have.
And you
look
have
at this
minutes if you'd
screen.
like to.
We have some notes, kind of quick outline, and also kind of a visual presentation. And this serves as kind of like a summary of where things are. Brian will be leaving the committee, after tonight's meeting, I understand, and I'll be leaving the committee, at the end of May. So we're the two current members of the subcommittee. What happens afterwards is up to the committee. But we wanted to just kind of like tie together things that we've done. And we also includes Andrea Solomon because, as noted here, Andrea and I were on the first subcommittee from 2020 to 2022. And then Brian and I continue till now. So, you know, the bottom line is that we have been focusing on an identified site off of the knoll. If we could bring it up, that'd be great. And I'll just kind of like go through these quickly because they're on the screen as bullet points. But there is a site and we have been looking at it. You'll see as I go through some images that there are also some alternatives or some additional things that can be considered separate or part of that site. But really, we're at a point now where what we think it would be helpful if this project would be pursued would be to engage a landscape architect, someone who's skilled with working with hardscape materials, with layouts and things, who can really kind of take what we've identified as a very vague concept and like draw it out. Say, okay, here's what it could possibly look like as the next step to engineering plans and, you know, really something that you can build on. So that would be a useful next step. And, you know, Justine mentioned the town trust funds, because we were thinking that, you know, one way to fund that kind of contract would be requesting money from that. I still call it the rich uncle that we just found out about. And also moving forward, continue to kind of leverage and incorporate a lot of the existing site features. Because there's a lot about the site, I think, that makes it really special and distinct from the adjacent area of the knoll, and also kind of unique from compared to the older parts of Sleepy Hollow. But have that site be aesthetically pleasing and, you know, tied in ways with the knoll and with the rest of Sleepy Hollow. You know, we don't want something that's really discordant, kind of like standing out in the space. And then finally, you know, it's got to be accessible and it's got to be useful. And that includes for internment services when you have 50 or 75 or 100 people gathering to lay someone's to rest. As well as for people who are visiting in smaller numbers, as well as for staff that, you know, have to maintain the site. So that's kind of it. The only thing else that I'll say with this is that if members have comments or questions, we can incorporate them into the kind of final bullet points. Because what I'm talking about tonight is kind of like our draft at this point. We okay?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a memory of seeing designs. What were those?
I don't know.
They were provided
Well-
by Hardy.
Yeah, so I think that, so kind of in our process, right, Jerry? So
Oh, that design?
we identified a place
Yeah, and that's in here.
and then we had kind of an
I'll go over
RFP to do a design and,
Oh, that's probably why.
what we really came to the conclusion of is really to plan out the columbarium in a more specific sense. We needed to have a broader plan for that general area so that the paths could be laid out, that
Can I also ask, does that look familiar?
No.
Okay,
Can you
totally.
scroll through?
Well, what I'd like to do is go back to the beginning.
Okay, sure.
And we'll just kind of like go through the whole thing.
These are not, this is not what I saw. I wonder, what
Okay.
did I see? Do you think?
So,
It was
For-
what Hardy provided. They had two different designs.
yeah, and we'll
Yeah,
get
you
to
might,
that.
maybe you'll get to them.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So for those who aren't familiar, this is basically a modular item, columbarium. Here's one being installed. You can see that they're pretty substantial. They're heavy materials, granite and so forth. Okay, and the next one shows like, this is kind of like one version of the finished product. And this, I'm gonna say, has 32 niches on each side, so this columbarium could accommodate 64 inurnments. And that's just a guess. Here's looking at an installation kind of on a smaller scale and also incorporating natural materials. I think this is a Newton. And, you know, instead of a big columbarium kind of blocking the view to the pond, there's a way to kind of step into the space and also still appreciate the pond. And looking at this, these modular units are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, maybe 24 per section times 4 or 5 sections. You've got 100, 150 maybe inurnments in this space. Okay. Here's, you know, this looks like a drive-in movie, but just the idea of a columbarium being a real focal point in a space and really kind of with a real contemporary aesthetic. Here's, you know, a contemplative, meditative courtyard where you can see all the niches are incorporated into the walls of the courtyard. There's a little space in the back there. I don't know where this is. You know, it's got an industrial aesthetic. Clearly, they've got a lot of, you know, need and not a lot of space. Which, you know, the next slide is that kind of that approach to installing a columbarium at the site that we've been talking about. And this comes up again. So here we are with a bird's eye view of the overall property and coming to the knoll. And we go over to the next one. So this is the relative position of the columbarium.
Okay, coming in from Bedford Street over here.
What's
Sorry,
that?
you're coming from Bedford Street over here, like at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, but yeah,
And then
exactly.
go
This-
around
And
this
there's
way.
more, yeah, there's some more things
Yeah.
to orient ourselves with too.
Okay.
The site has an asphalt walkway and a set of granite stairs already installed. It wasn't set up as a columbarium site. It was set up as potentially for like premium lots because of the location. The mausoleum sites and Bedford Street are down here. I just took a wild guess, but this is the area where the new layout is being done. All right, we'll go to the top of the walkway. And this is what it looks like in early spring. It's gorgeous. These fruit trees are really pretty. Okay. And standing there looking to the left, that's off where the stairs are. That's a useful landmark. Okay. So we walk down the walkway and take the gentle curve and come to the end. And this is the basic space. We kind of like to start looking around, all right, looking to our left and starting to scan to our right. You can see that there's a slope, and this place is kind of like nestled. Those are these sites where some artifacts were discovered, and we keep kind of turning. There's the tree line, which we can do some work with, and then there's a path to a pond. And that's Cat Pond? Is that called Cat Pond?
No,
No,
I call it Palumbo Pond.
Palumbo Pond.
I don't think
Oh,
it has a name, but Joe Palumbo dug it many, many, many years
the
ago.
Carrot
Joe
King.
Senior, not, yeah,
Carrot King of Concord.
yeah, he dug that out years ago for
Wow.
watering that field, for watering the asparagus farm, so
Okay.
that's what I call it. I've never seen a name for it.
All right, so kind of like standing there, you can look around and see all these things. So here's the stairs. We go to the top and we're looking back across that open space that's being plotted out now and across to the knoll, and then turning back again, looking toward the tree line. So that's kind of our view. Here we go again. Now, the first time I went here, and I don't know if it was you and I, Andrea, but we took this walk. We thought, okay, let's check out this space. And I walked down, and this was my thought. This was my reaction, this next slide. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has been to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial,
Mhm.
but it's incredibly moving. And, you know, a big part of that is that idea of descending, of walking into something, and then walking out. You know, and what Maya Lin said about her whole idea for this, and she was 19 when she won this competition, and it clearly was very controversial at the time, but it's just incredibly powerful. And, you know, this is what she said, that, you know, she described it as a wound in the earth, and that she really, and the next slide really emphasizes the important words for us, that it signifies pain and loss, and, you know, you allow for this connection for each person coming into the place to have some kind of journey, some kind of experience of reflection and remembrance. And so, you know, again, kind of looking at that space, it's like, huh, what could we do with this? What could this be like? And I'm a big Maya Lin fan, and if you ever have a chance to go to Montgomery, Alabama, this is in the plaza at the Southern Poverty Law Center. And this is her Civil Rights Memorial, where the circle in the foreground are the names of people killed from, I forget the first name, but it was a young boy, in the 50s to like 1968 with Martin Luther King. And the whole impact of this memorial, Montgomery in the summer is brutally hot. All the state office buildings around are stark white marble. And here's the sound of water and this coolness. And when you see people there, they're always touching, because you get water flowing down the back and water flowing across the top. And it's just quite an experience. So view of the site from the knoll stairs. Now here's a thought, okay? Let's go to the next. You know, that idea of a low profile columbarium with natural materials. One very simple approach, or an approach to incorporate as well as something down in that space, could be like low-rise columbariums that are actually accessed directly from the knoll and not by that longer path. They're kept low, there's natural materials so that they don't stand out, and some kind of path to them, you know, across this space. Thinking that because, and here's what it would look like from the other side. In having conversations throughout, it's like, what if people can't get down here, or if it's not convenient to get down here, or they don't want to be down here? Installing a simple columbarium really anywhere in the knoll could potentially be an option, something that's readily accessible from existing pathways. But if you have some like low-rise things, this is how it could look from this side. And that's, again, that's the kind of thing I was talking about. Now let's just do this again here, looking around here, looking across. Back in 2023, when we said, okay, let's get some designs, we put out a call and we got a response. And oh yeah, it will be the next one.
Okay.
And here's some plans that have since been done, just basic topography and, you know, woodlands delineations and wetlands delineations and stuff. There's a zooming in on it.
Oh, God, sorry. There's nothing bad. Hold on. I'll zoom up. There we go. Sorry.
All right, so that's kind of like what we have. All right. Next.
Yeah.
All right, so looking at these landmarks here, this is the initial design that came back. And this is what we were referencing earlier when Priscilla raised the question.
What do you do? Hold on.
Here we go. Yeah. So, you know, clearly this is preliminary, and, you know, one constraint or one requirement was, okay, you know, these stairs remain in place. They don't necessarily have to. But this is kind of like, you know, one approach to doing this, which is pretty, you know, pretty stark. The next is kind of like an aerial view of,
Is that it?
yeah, although the screen's kind of oversized, but this is kind of like looking down on the whole thing. It's like a big, yeah. So you've got the hardscape, you've got the stairs kind of out in the middle, and you've got this hardscape space. You know, Tish identified some requirements for interments for services, a certain, you know, accommodate a number of people comfortably with chairs. Okay, the next one. So, and that's how it sits kind of in the space. So here's this vague alternative. The next one is saying, well, let's maintain or enhance or work with existing contours, and then let's also get rid of the stairs. And use the materials in them, around the site. And so here's kind of like, and again, here's where we need a conceptual artist because, my mock-ups aren't all that spiffy, right? And I don't even know what this means. But this struck me, and this was the fun part of all this. If you go out on Pinterest and enter like a columbarium, you start getting lots of images and lots of different related images. And some of the images that I was getting was really like the juxtaposition of materials, which I thought was really cool. You know, here, you know, granite and grass, and there's like another one too, yeah. So that it's just really kind of an invitation to think aesthetically and imaginatively about what this space could be, bearing in mind that there are some real practical considerations that need to be met. And the space may turn out to be really not suitable for this whole thing. And instead something more standard like low-rise columbariums located in more convenient locations could be an option. I don't know. I just wanted to end with this. Has anybody read this book? Yeah, oh, it's so terrific. Yeah, Roz Chast, it's a memoir of her final years with her aging parents. Both of them do die in the course of the book. And so a couple of years later, in the New Yorker, she did this cartoon, this epilogue. And she said, you know, I did a book a couple of years ago and I got this email from someone. Because part of the story in the book is that she learned that she had a sister who died at birth. And she had never known all her life. She was an only child. And so this person reached out and said, hey, you know, that really got me thinking. The woman says, I used Find a Grave and I think I've located where your sister is buried. And I think I've also located where your mother's parents are buried. So that whole led to a whole big adventure. And finally, Roz says, you know, my parents' ashes, which had been sitting in my closet since their deaths in 2007 and 2009, had at last found a home. She went to that cemetery where her sister was and her grandparents were. And she found that it was like, okay, I can do this. So the other day she returned to Mount Lebanon, this time, the Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Queens, this time with a pal and my parents' cremains. So, and she placed them in a columbarium. And this is just beautiful. A workman drove me out to the niche wall. I carried the bag on my lap. We're joined by a group of workmen at the wall. One of them climbed a ladder, opened the niche, and one by one, placed my parents' ashes inside. Then he resealed it and climbed back down. It was time to say goodbye. So I thought that would be a good way to kind of end this presentation as we say goodbye to Brian. And also to the columbarium subcommittee, for now anyway. So additions, comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of part of this is, you know, as we looked at the columbarium, again, we kind of understood that it really needs maybe a more master plan of the whole area, as Jerry had outlined in his little thing. So I mean, that has taken some time, and I think it's still kind of a work in progress, although close to the end on it now. But so that, you know, lots are laid out, roads are laid out. So I think now is like a great opportunity to revisit how the columbarium will fit into that plan. And we have a better sense of where we can put our walkways and whatnot in structure. So, and I think, you know, we have had some great conversations with folks who build the columbariums. I think that one of the things was that they felt like, you know, that it could be a push on the cost, that, you know, you could either, you know, maybe make a little money, or at least it would be a zero cost.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we didn't do was kind of like say, okay, so many niches at whatever rate we charge, you know, there's kind of like the potential revenue from this, and that could describe kind of what the budget is and kind of guide us afterwards.
And just, I mean, it's one of the few ones that has a big demand. Tish always says she's got kind of a wait list already for
Yep.
folks that have an interest. So
What would something like that sell for?
Different, it's, we honestly haven't researched it too much, but it's kind of tiered pricing. Where one on the bottom might cost, usually 2 urns go in each, not just one, a couple typically. The bottom might cost, say, $500, and one here might be 600, the one that's at eye level might be 800, and the one that you have to climb a 20-foot ladder for might be 400.
The penthouse.
Yeah, that would be fun to visit. But that's how the pricing goes. And you figure out, how to sell a cremation lot for $500, for $750, or up to 4.
One that's buried.
Burial.
burial.
4 interments and cremated.
Okay, all
So
right.
it's taking a 4-foot by 5-foot space that we could fit
Yeah,
so many, so.
yeah, all right.
Can I ask Tish?
Okay.
When you're burying cremains, you're not digging as deep as a full burial.
No,
And there's
about
no-
2 feet,
Down about 2 feet.
yeah.
Okay. And the container itself is firm, so there's no container within the container?
We
or-
don't have a requirement for any type of container.
Okay.
So anywhere, you could have an urn vault, or you could directly pour the remains into the ground.
Okay.
A lot of standard boxes are from the crematory, just cardboard or plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, wooden, a lot of wood.
Cardboard.
Yep.
Nice.
So there you go. All right, if there's no further discussion, there's no vote needed or anything like that. D4, discussion, film application process.
And that would be Andrea.
Well, I just wanted to bring this up because, sometimes when I'm filling out this application, I feel like there's more information that you guys would like to have than what's on there, so I thought maybe we can just add some stuff. I came up with some other versions of it that probably won't work, so we'll start from the beginning. But, the point of this, of course, is to keep people from coming in and filming without permission in the cemetery, because there's a lot that goes on there. And you also have to be mindful of the privacy of the people buried there. So right now, this does 2 things: that ask people to ask permission to come into the cemetery and take pictures, and also what are you gonna use those pictures for? And so what comes up often when I'm filling this out is we have taken, like, as part of Friends of Sleepy Hollow, there are pictures taken at like often a public event, so like the rededication ceremonies that we've had, or the headstone cleaning thing that we do once a year. And so people are taking pictures, those are public events. Like, I don't think there's a problem with people snapping photos with their iPhones and whatnot, but later, you scroll through your photos, oh, maybe we'll use this as for a mailing, or sometimes there's historians that use them, like Beth Van Duzer has come forward and like she's gonna use pictures for her lecture. So all that should also need permission, but sometimes the permission information you might need for that is a little different than like what it would take to set up a film crew in a cemetery. So I was trying to figure out like how you could add sections or more questions to this to just bring that out a little more, or to expand it a little more to those different situations without taking away the authority of the cemetery to grant that permission. And I don't know how to do that I don't want to negate the importance of the asking permission in the first place to take the photos. But I also feel like there should be attention put on, like, what are you using that for? I mean, that would be obvious if you're setting up with a film crew, you're using that film for something. But like, if you're snapping pictures one day at a private event, a public event, and you're just wanting to do a cemetery, but then you decide to use pictures at a later date or something, like, that just deserves more attention, maybe.
What would happen if there were 2 applications? Would that be really cumbersome? If you had 2 separate ones, like one for film and one for photography?
20 years ago, I would have said no, but now people with their phones can do filming and photography at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of easy to just do a video instead of taking a photograph.
No, I
think
know,
it
but
should
I'm
be on
just
the
saying,
same-
oh, yeah.
they're not gonna wanna fill out two, because one time they hit video instead of picture,
Oh, I see. what you
you
mean.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Long ago, before phones,
Mm-hmm.
it was either filming or photographing.
So I'm just wondering if you had one specifically for film and then a completely separate one for photography. The one for photography could get into more detail about what you're talking about. Like the use and,
The film could be the same.
Yeah,
We saw a video, four people sent me a video of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in the fall from Snapchat. So that we knew nothing about, or
Oh.
Instagram or something, like,
because
and I
it was,
contacted the person.
it was
And let her
video.
know that she was, yeah. it was
Yeah,
a
yeah,
video.
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, this is one of the ones that you proposed, I think, right?
yeah, but then, like, just made the point that you don't wanna,
You don't want the section 2 for to use of film already taken in the cemetery.
to like, you
We wanna
don't,
encourage people to think that that's
Not-
okay.
Right,
To
right,
come
right.
in and do it. And then get permission later, cause that's when they could waste their time. We haven't had a chance to talk to them and tell them what we're gonna allow and what we're not gonna allow.
yeah,
And there are times that a film crew or somebody might come in and say, I'm gonna take pictures at this event. We wanna know they're there taking pictures, but
Yeah.
before they can publish the pictures, they sometimes have to show them to us. Because what you think is okay and what we think is okay might be two different things.
yeah,
Commercial purposes is the phrase that pops out at me, because I was thinking like, okay, so I'm walking through the cemetery and I'm taking some pictures. And then I post on a social media account. You know, I took a walk through Sleepy Hollow today, and here are some pictures. That's not for commercial purposes.
But it's not personal or private use either.
yeah, that's the other thing that's changed.
For other than personal or private use.
Okay, so there's two things. The Mass General Law talks about commercial use, and we have an additional regulation.
Yes.
Okay,
As do many cemeteries, I think, yeah.
Yeah, the one we pulled up was Mount Auburn.
okay.
And
And that, okay, so that's an important distinction, but that's to know what we're enforcing.
Yeah, you wanna see
Right.
pictures of Sleepy Hollow on people's Facebook all the time? Yeah.
But why isn't that personal?
You're publishing it publicly.
yes, everything's public on the internet.
Yeah,
But it's not commercial.
Right.
it's not private, personal use. Putting it out for the world to see.
Hmm. I am not a lawyer.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
think
don't get it.
for the purposes of this, it's really to restrict as much as possible access to the cemetery, so you don't have film crews coming in and disruption of services. Be it like cleanup or burial services, but also as much as possible restricting how those pictures are used, which is hard to do when people are posting on Facebook, but at least for the people who are doing talks, who are doing mailings, who are putting something in a publication, who want to follow the rules. I just wondered if there were things we could add to it that would make it a little more clear as to like the information you guys would like to see when you're looking over this. So like maybe, I think one thing we could do is add, proposed use on media, all media, social media. And then also like for discussions, for talks, for lectures, you know, that's a form of media. A lot of those things are recorded and posted. So, and I'm sure there's like so many other examples. I don't know.
Well, I think the other thing that you were talking about, Andre, is in addition to obviously we're protecting the cemetery itself and the process and the funerals and the maintenance and all of that. We're also, by having this in place for both photos and filming, and even past photos, is that you're also protecting the privacy of people who, of the people who are buried there, because sometimes, people don't understand that you're not supposed to take pictures of gravestones that aren't public. And, again, it's one of those things, if you see it in the public, it means that it's public,
Right.
but it's not, it's technically private, so.
Yeah, to me, that's the distinction between that's what makes it necessary to try to restrict the use of photos taken in the cemetery. Be it at first for personal use, But once you're putting it out there, you have to be aware that you may be showing a gravestone of that family that I'm not seeing for any reason, like it's just respect.
I'm wondering about the difference between, I'm taking a walk through Sleepy Hollow. And I take a picture because the sun's coming through the pines really nicely. And yes, there are graves. They're not like the main focus of the picture, but I'm clearly in a cemetery. So there's that. But then I take my camera and I start like taking close-up pictures and posting those. Now, that strikes me as different. But, you know, when Mass General Law says that, and then we try and have a regulation that says other than personal or private use, and we define personal or private use. Well, that doesn't include putting it on, you know, your Facebook page. Yeah, that, I don't know how that could, ultimately, I don't know how that could be enforced or how they could stand up. The bottom line is we're trying to promote respectful treatment of space. And the other thing too that came up when I overheard your discussion was just like the practical aspect of like, okay, someone's got permission to film. And then they show up at like a really bad time.
Well, we'd like to know if they're coming to Author's Ridge next Tuesday at 3 o'clock, but then we end up with a funeral. We'll
So,
call them and say, hey, you need to adjust your time or your day depending on the lighting and the weather.
Mm.
But we have a funeral that's gonna be there, so we can't have you in the vicinity doing your thing.
so having like a final check-in or,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
whatever.
that's important.
Yeah,
That's-
so I don't want anything to take away from that.
Yeah, well, that line is on in here,
Yeah,
proposed date and time.
yeah,
So that's stated, and then as you said, if it turns out there's a funeral, then you call them.
Yeah, call them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
so I don't know, maybe it's just too hard to add to it.
I would ask them to call.
But they have to call anyway to get the application, right? So that's a good, that's a
Currently,
great
yeah.
introduction
Yeah.
for them. Or for any.
this isn't on the website?
No.
Where did I go?
Probably you had it sent to you if you were filling it one out, if you requested
I
one.
must just keep it on my desktop because I need it all the time. Okay,
Yeah, and then, so maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe it doesn't need, maybe it just needs to add the social media aspect of it, which is, I feel like people will look at that as a gray area as long as they possibly can.
but maybe it needs to be very specifically stated that the photos aren't allowed on social media, period. People
Do that.
don't,
No,
That's pretty
most
clear.
most people aren't getting this application, and tourists aren't thinking that they even need it.
Mhm.
But if we do see it, if people take a picture and post it on Google, for example, we own the 3 cemeteries. And if people post pictures of them, we get notified. I get
Mhm.
notified, so I can go through them, yeah. So I can go through them, and if they're fine, they're fine, but if it's a close-up picture of my mother's headstone, I'm gonna write
Mhm,
privacy issue, and they Google takes it down.
Mhm.
Yeah. People don't know that. I don't write to the people that took them. I'm
Mhm.
gonna hunt them down. It's, you know, it is what it is. But we do try to remove them if we know that they're gonna maybe upset somebody.
What about like the sites like Find a Grave?
I was just gonna
stuff like
ask,
that,
yeah.
so.
I don't like,
Yeah,
Do
right.
do we
right.
get hits there? Do you get like?
yeah, the biggest problem with that place is the people who just decide that somebody's buried in Old Hill Burial Ground because they should have been. And then we get calls for people looking for Peter Bulkley because it says on Find a Grave, he's there. Where's his headstone? Well, he doesn't have. That's the biggest problem with Find a Grave because it's, people don't, they just put it out there.
It's like
Some
Wikipedia.
random person put my mother and father's obituary on Find a Grave, but has also input 16,000 other people.
Mhm.
Like, why? I don't know why, but that's what they do.
A weird hobby.
And then, yeah, it is. And then if I want a picture of a headstone in Arkansas, I can request it. And there's somebody in Arkansas who's gonna come to the cemetery and look for it and take a picture and put it on Find a Grave. There's people who just do that as a hobby. You can request photos and they'll go do it.
Mm.
Some people don't want them there. If my family's was on there, I'd ask
it's a
them to
cool
take them down.
hobby.
Yeah.
All right,
they do.
well,
Next, yeah,
do it.
I guess we have.
where are we
They
with
do
this?
it.
So you don't have to make any decisions now, but maybe like, and actually, the decision's really all up to the cemetery management. So maybe you just wanna add a section that asks for like dates photos were taken, or adding the social media aspect of it.
I think there definitely should be a social media.
that
Line.
makes it really clear. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it never
clearer
existed.
than, yeah.
When
Yeah.
Yeah.
it didn't exist when we wrote this.
Oh, that's what you were referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wrote this a long time ago, and we actually consulted with Mount Auburn when we did it.
Okay.
But social media didn't exist back then.
And did you look, and I know you were talking about Mount Auburn earlier, do they have an updated kind of application that?
So I didn't go to, I didn't go as far as getting their application, but their application is not online either. You have to reach out to them, so then you have a conversation with them. But they do have rules and regulations regarding photographs online. So, we're saying that might be something we can, come up with some rules and regulations that the committee,
Guidelines.
I don't know if it's the committee, if it's management or how that works, but guidelines, and then we can
Yeah,
put those on the website that will
yeah.
help alleviate some of the confusion too.
Yeah.
Or kind of get the why behind why you're saying no, or why you will have to fill this out.
I think that's so
You know,
important
that
to
might
give
be
people that notice, the requirements and they may not be thinking about it in exactly those terms. So I mean, I think that'd be great to kind of think about adding language to the website and.
I feel like the more explicit it is, the more serious people will take it too. Like sometimes this looks so general and I'm like, people could just put on the most generic. I mean, actually, you'll have to talk to them anyways with that one. I just feel like the more explanation people are asked to give, the more serious they'll take it.
Mm.
And,
And the more clear we are that, it's about not exploiting.
yeah.
Well, also, I'm the one that has done the most violating, I feel like.
I think I get to be.
Well, it's because I,
panicking over here.
it's because I use the,
It's all the same.
it's because I need to use photos in print all the time.
Mhm.
And my understanding always was, so long as you can't identify a headstone, it's okay. But now I'm understanding that that's not true.
We don't want to identify a headstone that is somebody that's not in the public eye.
But for
But any
example,
picture still needs to
you
be
were
approved.
telling me this photo was taken in the cemetery. And you said I still need permission for this.
Mhm.
There's nothing identifying about it at all. There's no way anybody would know this was taken in the cemetery. But I still need permission for it. For
That
this,
was, you zoomed in on that one.
yeah,
I think, remember, you could see headstones before you zoomed in on it.
right, but
Yeah.
even after I zoomed in on it, you said no.
No, we didn't say no once you zoomed in.
Yeah, but anyway, this one is the same thing. I mean, yeah, you can tell that it's in the cemetery, but you can't identify anything. That's not fair.
So, yeah, and I guess
I
that's,
know where it is.
this is the kind of thing that I had.
Where
I had in
I
mind
know
too.
where it is.
This is what I had in mind too, like, I was walking through,
Yeah, I mean,
Sleepy
there
Hollow
are,
today and,
like, here's another one. Like, you can't tell where that is. I
Right.
know she can.
I can't.
right, yeah, there's.
But I think that's the thing is even, so again, when you're taking the pictures, you're still filming in the cemetery, which is why you're looking for the permission for that. And then, again, if
See,
Tish
but my
looks at-
problem is that I have over all the years, I've got a stock of folders of photos that, oh gee, let's see, I need a fall photo. So I go into those photos, they're photos that have been taken ages ago.
Right, so then you would
Right,
just fill out
previously
that,
taken photo.
previously taken photo, and then, and again, I think that's the other part of it, is sometimes Tish approves it, or Tish and Aaron approve it
We can.
without bringing it to the committee.
Right,
Because
Yeah.
it is one of
We
those
just did for Kevin.
that
he
looks
just did
like
it fine.
that.
And
yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah, we
private,
could, those were all fine.
private public.
Yeah.
It's private up until the point you publish it, right? So you're okay because it's private, and then when you decide to publish it, that's when you have to come. and seek
Even when
approval.
it's just going to a closed donor list.
Correct.
Right.
I'm not on the donor list, but if I saw this, I might snap it up, It's a nice picture. It's checkbook.
Oh,
right, thank you. Thanks for understanding.
All right, so I guess that ends without any particular decisions.
Well, maybe
But,
You wanna draft
put some time.
yeah, no,
So,
so,
We can probably just.
update
Well,
in the
who
minutes?
does that?
Copy
Is that you
verbatim
just
what they
do?
wrote at sleep, no, no.
Do you get to
Probably.
do that?
probably, yeah, so what I just put on for, I kind of take notes of what to do for the next meeting.
Mhm.
So I just put, rules and regs for photography, so Tish and I will talk, we'll figure out whether that's something, how
Draft
that
maybe a,
works, and then,
A revision and then maybe we can take a look at it. or
Yeah.
something. Okay.
yeah, exactly,
That sounds
so we can revisit it for next.
All right,
All right.
Next thing is the
D5.
master plan.
Oh, yeah, master plan, final draft review and approval. Yeah. I'm gonna suggest that we just punt that into next month since Jeff's kind of been
yeah.
driving the discussion on that.
Can I ask a clarifying question about it? I want to make sure I understand, because as I was looking at the appendix, there were some things in the appendix that I just was looking for clarification on from the committee. So we can finish that part of it, because as you noticed, the appendix part wasn't
Right.
finished. So there were things such as, let's see, priorities, maybe check. So we'll handle the space update. So we'll put the Walter Cruising report in. Appendix E was the CPC grant application. Both of those are pretty hefty documents. And I'm just wondering, do you want the full application? I
don't know
thought we were
why
gonna do
the
the
application
Stonewall
needs to be
conditions. We were gonna do that report from right
Conditions
here,
assessment, yeah.
the condition assessment. Does that,
I don't know why the application would need to be there because it's so after the fact, right? I mean, the
It was
application
act-
was
They both-
already
they
It
both
was
got
active.
approved?
submitted and it was approved. Why do we need that as we don't need that documentation.
Is there a summary?
Do we?
Is there like a summary paragraph or what was provided to the warrant or anything from
So
CPC?
there might be a warrant, there might be something. for
So I
that.
mean, I think it would be just helpful, maybe just to have
I
a
don't think
word
we do a warrant, just the
Oh, yeah.
application.
or just the application.
No, well, it has to be voted on at town meeting,
The
so that
material.
little
CPC
piece.
warrant.
The warrant probably just has the CPC projects with the amounts that are voted, that would
Yeah,
correct.
I don't know
be
that
very
that's a ton of information, but maybe.
I'll see if there's a summary.
I mean, I think with a summary, just so future people would be able to understand
project.
exactly what the project entails without having to have all the details of what that project.
I think you could just do a summary.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see if there's anything already existing.
And the conditions assessment would do that also, because they have the whole,
Right,
they assigned damage conditions and costs to all the stone walls, so that would kind
Yeah.
of give people an idea of
okay.
what was happening.
I think that was my main question, was that one.
Just that
Was it
one.
just, yeah, and we'll update, Bryn will update the lot availability. We had, Tish and Doug did that, so I just need to incorporate that in. And then, I think there's just the DPW priorities. That was the last part, so we'll get those all together.
All right. Here, D6 chair comments. Sure, I'll take advantage of 30 seconds of some comments. I want to thank Ryan certainly for his time on the committee. And for the time we spent together on the subcommittee. I mean, really appreciate your attention to detail and your really just commitment to tying together loose ends. You know, it's like the best of a lawyer and an accountant. Sometimes you need that, so.
Thanks, sir. Yes, it's been a great 6 years, so appreciate all the work that especially the Concord Public Works folks do every day. And, you know, we get to just sit here and pontificate, and you guys are the ones that go out and actually have to do all the hard work. So just really appreciate, you know, especially Aaron, who's not here as well,
Yes.
but just for his leadership and been a good experience. And Andrea, so started so long ago with you as well. So thank you guys. Really, it's been a fascinating time. I'm so shocked at how many different subjects the committee covers, you know, from history to building things to everything in between. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Brian. Any other members of the committee with comments? No, public comments? Okay. All right, then, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn since it'll be my last.
All right, Brian's last motion,
I second.
seconded. All right, Brian,
Aye.
Jerry, aye. Priscilla
Aye.
and Bridget.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks very much.